good morning, good afternoon, or even for you, Mark, good evening. First of all, allow me, Mark, to thank you and Nick for inviting me to this digital version of the yearly well-known and well-appreciated AU Asia Afore ASIFMA event. It goes without saying that I very much welcome this the interesting debate in today's panel, and especially the fact that the dialogue between European and Asian authorities has been, frankly speaking, very fruitful and has allowed for better understanding of our respective challenges and possible solution. As agreed, Mark, and in my closing remark, I would like to focus on the important recent development in respect of sustainable finance, seen through what I call an international lens. Of course, it's high on the agenda, but frankly speaking, from a personal point of view, I also believe, Mark, that there are many bridges to be expected between Asia and Europe, for instance, about this very important challenge related to sustainable finance. But before that, let me first of all underline the relevance of the themes discussed today in the light of the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. For sure, the COVID-19 crisis demonstrates again the opportunity cost of not having a robust market-based finance. We saw this after the 2008 crisis. The US, for instance, recovered fast, partly, I think, because of its highly developed capital market. And large and open capital market can mobilize the investment need to facilitate the post-COVID recovery. And the reason is quite easy to understand. Market-based finance will also be essential to financing the digital and sustainable transition. Turning to the agenda of the international agenda on sustainable finance, I would like, if you agree, Mark, to touch on three interrelated matters. First of all, the what I call the IOSCO coordination role at international level. Second part of my comment, the initiative taken by the IFRS Foundation. And last but not least, the relevance of audit and assurance when it comes to sustainability-related disclosure. In so doing, I will draw on my experience, first of all, as Vice Chair of IOSCO, which has worked, as you know, and it was already rightly stressed by Ashley in this keynote address in this conference. And I would like to draw on my experience as Vice Chair of IOSCO, which has worked extensively on this matter under, of course, Ashley's leadership and assisted by a task force in which my Swedish colleague, Eric Taden, the UK FCA and the Spanish MMV play an important role. As you know, Mark, I'm also directly involved in this discussion, taking part in what we call the international governance and oversight of accounting standard setting as chair of the well-known IFRS monitoring board that oversees the IFRS Foundation. But also as co-chair of the monitoring group overseeing that audit-related standard setting is done in the public interest, I would like also to say something about the oversight of the auditing standard setup, because let us be clear, we are speaking about trust. If there is a problem about trust, for instance, with the use of greenwashing, by definition, we will have to manage serious problem. And from this point of view, global, I would say, accounting standards, but also quality is expected from the auditors, the external auditors, to check, I would say, if everything is going in the direction. First of all, maybe some comments about IOSCO, and I would like to elaborate a little bit about on what Ashley was able to say, I would say, on a more detailed aspect as Vice Chair. As you know, IOSCO works in what I call three key areas. sustainability disclosure at corporate level. Second aspect, the role of ESG data and rating providers, where IOSCO is looking to the risk associated with the growing role of rating. And last but not least, very important, the asset manager disclosure and investor protection issue such as greenwashing. And limiting greenwashing is an important challenge and of interest to all stakeholders. It's a rather negative starting point to speak about greenwashing, but I think that if you are not able to manage that properly, it can be a very difficult challenge to manage, I would say, in the coming years. And the reason is quite easy to understand. Any major incident of greenwashing could jeopardize the whole credibility of sustainable finance efforts. And in my further remark, if you agree, Mark, I would like to focus on what I call the corporate level disclosure, as there is a growing momentum. I think that's the right timing to have this conference today. There is a growing momentum building, as witnessed by various press statements and reports in the last weeks issued, and even the last days issued by IOSCO, by the IFRS Foundation, by the FSB. It was done this week, and also this week, the European body, EFRAG. And placing sustainability at the heart of the financial system is increasingly important, not just by public authorities, and that's very important to stress, but also by you, because I know that many representatives of investors and companies are attending this important conference. And since there is a global challenge, the need for coordinated international action in this regard is widely shared, and greater international alignment on ESG-related disclosure would increase, for sure, global transparency. It will also reduce the due diligence cost for global investors, because we are also speaking about cost-benefit analysis, and of course, last but not least, the administrative cost of multinational company. This has been rightly highlighted by many bodies, for instance, such as the well-known International Platform of Sustainable Finance, which has a working group on sustainability-related disclosure co-chaired by the Japan FSA and the EU Commission. And in this respect, one may also quote US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who in her letter to the G20 on the 25th of February, the first letter sent by Janet Yellen to the G20, which has to be already also in the line. And Janet Yellen confirmed that, and I quote Janet Yellen, that a truly collective and multilateral response is the only realistic solution to this global challenge of climate change, including sustainable finance and transparency around climate-related financial risk. It's also interesting to see that acting SEC chair recently started a review of public companies' climate risk disclosure in the US, which may lead, I think, to reviewing the SEC climate guidance. So what does it mean? To make a long story short, it means that this global consensus on enhancing disclosure spanning Asia, the EU and the US is really, frankly speaking, a very positive signal for the future. At the same time, and although in recent years, environment-related disclosure has improved, nonetheless, as reflected in IOSCO fact-finding work, investor demand, and that's very important to stress, investor demand for sustainability-related information is still not being properly met. It's not a positive or a negative stem, just about the fact-finding output that we were able to carry on at the level of IOSCO. And for instance, what does it mean? It means, for instance, that companies often report sustainability-related information selectively. That's a very important, tricky issue. And second aspect about greenwashing, referencing different frameworks. This can lead, of course, to cherry picking as regard reporting standards or ratings, so that the sustainability disclosure look as good as possible. What's the added value, if I may say, of IOSCO? Well, in this respect, IOSCO rightly pointed to the objective to examine pathway to mandatory disclosure beyond the voluntary framework that are still the norm in many jurisdictions. And such sustainability disclosure by corporates will also help fund managers and other financial firms that themselves need to disclose how they are addressing sustainability risk in their investment. Most recently, and Ashley also referred to that in his keynote address during this conference, most recently, as you know, Mark, the IOSCO board issued a press release, a very important and a very long, which is maybe not necessary, if I may say. It's not insider trading information, but you know the style of IOSCO, very short. This is a very long press statement. So it means what it means about, I would say, and telling very clearly that it's high on the agenda for IOSCO board members. And in this press statement was released on the 26th of February. And in this press release, it has been referred to the urgent need, and I quote the press statement, the urgent need to improve the consistency, the comparability and reliability of sustainability reporting. The initial focus would be on climate change relating risk and opportunity, which would substantially be broadened to other systemic issues, so step-by-step approach. And the IOSCO board identified as priorities in encouraging globally consistency standards and promoting comparability metrics and narrative. Therefore, it goes without saying that IOSCO is committed to working with the IFRS Foundation trustee and other stakeholders to advance these priorities, which cover both content, but not only content, also governance issue. And what does it mean? With other words, it means that IOSCO has a key role to play working together with the IFRS Foundation trustee towards the establishment of, and that's part of a new technical vocabulary, the establishment of a new sustainability standards board, SSB, to sit alongside the ISB. I could say a copy and paste of ISB, but it would be wrong because there will be specificities. They will have to deliver on specific issue about the governance of this new SSB. The advantage, of course, that's the synergy in order to take into account the know which has been quite clear at the level of the ISB for many years. And this under the umbrella of the existing IFRS Foundation governance structure with a view to delivering on time an effective system architecture for setting sustainability disclosure standards. And given the role of securities regulator, because we will be involved in the enforcement, in the implementation, not only at worldwide level, not only at regional level, but also at domestic level, it means that's quite obvious that what I call the IOSCO ecosystem, it means also at national level, the national supervisor will have to assess the final proposal by the trustee of the IFRS Foundation. IOSCO, in other words, and to make a long story short, IOSCO will have an essential role to play in evaluating the standards issued by the SSB for cross-border purpose in issuer sustainability related reporting requirement and in encouraging members. That's also important. We are a membership organization. So it means the added value of IOSCO covering 95% of financial market at worldwide level is to be able to give support, I would say, to the effort made by all IOSCO members to encourage and to implement and to enforce, I would say, these new standards. And that will be the case also for setting sustainability-related disclosure requirement at national and regional level. Is it something revolutionary? I don't think so. If you see what happened in the endorsement and the oversight of international and the international accounting standard setting by the IASB. This role was also played, I would say, 20 years ago by IOSCO. And giving IOSCO a role in chairing the monitoring board of the IFRS Foundation, I have the pleasure to be the current chair of the monitoring board. I think that we are also committed to playing what we could call a leading role in monitoring the related governance arrangement. And its press release of last Monday, on the 8th of March, interesting to see that there is a dialogue between IOSCO and then an answer coming back from IFRS not 1 year after that, not 6 months after that, even not a month, on the 8th of March, the IFRS Foundation confirmed in a well-known press release, they confirmed, the IFRS Foundation, that it remains on track to make a final determination about a new board in advance of the November 2021 United Nations COP26 conference. And the reason for that, even if they are very prudent, very professional at the level of the IFRS Foundation, they can build, I think, on a very successful public consultation. The amount of answer was very impressive. It's not only about statistics. It's about the quality of the comment, I would say, very positive, with a lot of added value. I think that they have a good starting point, and that the IFRS Foundation can build on the success of this public consultation. And following, besides the direction set by IOSCO in this press release in February, the trustee outlined very rapidly the following key feature of the new architecture were put forward by the IFRS Foundation. And that's very important to recall as well. First of all, and that's a starting point, you would say, Mark, it's quite obvious. Not sure. I would say I know some accounting standard setters which would like to start with another starting point. But here, I will say that the first priority is investor value for enterprise value. So it means that the new SSB, the new board, would focus on information that's material to the decision of investor, lenders, and other creditors. Second key aspect for the future development of the SSB, sustainability scope prioritizing a climate. That's the so-called step-by-step approach. Third main action, build on existing framework. That's also very important. Is it something which was expected per se from IFRS? Not sure. They could have said we start from scratch. They try to avoid to do this mistake, and that's very important to stress that, I would say, in this press statement, to say that the objective is to build on existing framework. So it means, in other words, that the new board will have to build upon the well-established work of the Financial Stability Board Task Force on climate-related financial disclosure, the well-known TCFD, as well as work by the aliens of leading standard setters in sustainability reporting focused again on enterprise values. IOSCO is exactly on the same page and encourage and support the SSB to leverage, because time flies also, not only for me as speaker, but also generally speaking for sustainable finance. And it's important to leverage the content of existing sustainability-related reporting frameworks, because this can give the IFRS Foundation a running start in developing a common set of financial standards. Fourth main action of this press release coming from the IFRS Foundation, building block approach. That's very important, let us be clear. There is no, according to me, competition between worldwide agenda, regional agenda, and national agenda. And that's very important to state. And by working with standard setters from key jurisdictions, standards issued by the new board would provide a globally consistent and comparable sustainability reporting baseline, while also providing flexibility for coordination on reporting requirements that capture wider sustainability impact. Therefore, IOSCO encouraged by definition, of course, this so-called building blocks approach, for instance, to establishing a global sustainability report system and limit undue fragmentation. It was also stated by former speakers during this conference. And the objective is limit undue fragmentation as much as possible, as it was discussed in one of today's panels. As a possible coordination mechanism, the idea, which you can read in IOSCO press statement, is exploring with the IFRS Foundation and other multilateral body. Let us be clear, it's a real building block approach, common approach that we need. And the objective is to explore with the IFRS Foundation and other multilateral bodies the establishment of a consultative committee under the IFRS Foundation that can advise the SSB on those sustainability topics that are material from an enterprise value creation perspective and advise on consistency on requirement on the broader sustainability topics. Frankly speaking, I think that the first step to be developed, the first standards.
Jean-Paul, it's Mark. I think we are kind of running quite a lot over. We're about 10 minutes over, so I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up in the next minute or two. Okay. I mean, it's a very exciting and important topic, but I think
maybe allow me just to say something, and I will stop with that. About two aspects, if I may. First of all, I think that it's important to state, especially during, I would say, this conference about EU and Asian dialogue. I think, frankly speaking, that there is a current between the IOSCO approach and the EU thinking on international cooperation. And that was also stressed by EFRAC, and you will recall, Mark, that Ashley showed this morning, I would say, the report published by EFRAC. And I think one of the added value of EFRAC is to promote what they call, I would say, that the EU would be able to promote and participate in global convergence efforts on a so-called co-construction basis. And the ultimate goal, as expressed, is to foster currents and consistency between EU and global sustainability report. And it can be noted that the EU intends to pay particular attention to the decision to be made by recognized global standards in order to promote convergence. And this concept of co-construction is a very interesting with a lot of added value. And allow me just to add, Mark, that due to the specific relationship established between the EU and the IFRS Foundation following the 22 IS regulation, the report coming from EFRAC suggests that dialogue be organized once the foundation has set a possible of action. And from this point of view, it would be good, I think, that if in principle, all regional initiatives would be able to participate to global convergence effort and to make convergence happen as quickly as possible. A final word, if I may, Mark, about auditing in respect to sustainability reporting standards. We don't have to underestimate the challenges relating to the community of auditors. And it means that specific attention should indeed be paid to the level of the so-called Asians, reasonable or limited, that can be considered for the information to be prepared under new standards. And the target should be for users to be able to place equivalent reliance on financial and sustainability reporting. And ultimately, external actions is likely to have an important role to play in upholding the quality of reporting, provided conform to user, very important, and that the standards have been met. And it is clear that high quality international standards based on robust processes, because we are speaking also about audit processes, interconnected with the so-called traditional financial reporting standard, will provide a better foundation for any agent's standards or methodology, enhancing the market trust. Trust is the key aspect in all these processes in sustainability disclosure. And it's therefore important that standards are principle-based, but at the same time, and that's the key aspect, sufficiently specific to help their auditability and enforceability. And that's something which was rightly stated by the IFAC recently. And the fact that I would say we are also involved in the oversight of, I would say, the quality of the decision-making process at worldwide level for the community of external auditor is very important. There are also many links between the IFRS Foundation and also the well-known International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board. And the position of the IFRS Foundation in the international landscape is therefore particularly favorable to facilitate interaction with the International Audit and Assurance Board. And the strengthened international audit standard setting will clearly help reinforce a greater public trust in the assurance and framework that is developed under the reform. At least that's what we are supporting. And as you know, I have the pleasure to be one of the two co-chairs of the monitoring board, which oversight, I would say, the quality of the audit standard setting system at worldwide level. And let me finish with this final comment, Mark. I am, frankly speaking, and from a personal point of view, I am confident, for instance, that the audit profession has a great deal of experience in serving the public interest and has significant expertise providing assurance on both qualitative and quantitative information. And it would therefore be well positioned to provide appropriate assurance on reporting sustainability finance. That's it, and sorry for being so long.